A few years ago, when I was in college, I was driving home to see my family during winter break. The trip was almost across the entire country, so it meant several long days in a row on the road. I was a broke college student, so hotels or even motels were out of the question. I packed some blankets in the back seat and decided I'd just sleep wherever I could, whenever I got tired. Around 1 a.m., after about 11 hours of straight driving, I finally decided to call it a night. I was getting dangerously tired, so I pulled into the next rest stop I found. It was one of those small pull-offs on the side of the highway, meant for just a few cars or trucks. There was a small building that looked like it had a restroom and a couple of vending machines. Only one other car was parked there, all the way in the back spot, so I parked in the opposite spot to give us both some space. I got out to stretch my legs and quickly used the restroom. It wasn't clean at all, which was gross, but I did my business and headed back to my car. When I came out, there was a man standing right next to my window, peering inside. Can I help you?" My voice startled him. He stepped back and gave a nervous chuckle, saying he was just checking if I was inside so he could ask if I had cash for the vending machine. My car had completely clear, untinted windows, so there was no reason for him to be pressed up against them like that. "Yeah, I don't have any cash." "Sorry, man," I said as I walked past him to get back in my car. But he didn't leave. Instead, he tried to start another conversation, asking what brought me out here tonight. I'm on a road trip. Sorry, but I really need to sleep. I can't talk right now." I got in my car, and he gave me a little sorry wave before walking back to his car. I felt a bit relieved. At least he wasn't some random homeless guy wandering around. To be honest, I was too exhausted to even feel creeped out. I just wanted to sleep. But thinking about it now, if I'd been more awake, I probably would have just left right then. I shoved the mess from the front seat into the back, leaned my seat as far back as possible, and tried to get comfortable. I had my eyes closed for maybe a few minutes when I noticed lights moving outside my car. I opened my eyes and saw in my mirror that the man had moved his car right up behind mine. I watched for a moment, wondering why he moved. Things were feeling weird, so I decided to forget it and find another place to sleep. I pulled my seat up, put the car in drive, and got back on the highway, muttering a few unpleasant words about him as I left. The next place to stop was at least 30 to 40 minutes away, and it was dangerously hard to keep my eyes open. I'd drift off for a second or two, then snap awake, realizing I'd been dozing. This kept happening until I finally found another rest stop, or at least something that looked like one. It was almost identical to the last one, but this one was clearly abandoned. The building was boarded up, falling apart, and covered in graffiti. Still, it was a place to park, so I figured I could sleep here for a few hours without being bothered. Whether it was because the place was dead quiet, or because I was just so tired, I fell asleep almost instantly. I slept from about 2 a.m. until 4 a.m. when I was violently woken up by a loud crash against my car. The whole vehicle shook. I shot up, looking into my left mirror, and saw headlights from a car parked right behind me. Then I turned to my right mirror and saw a man standing next to my car with a metal baseball bat. He swung again, shattering my back window. I started yelling, "What the hell?" over and over, fumbling for my keys to get out of there. Then he came to my passenger side, and I realized it was the same man from the other rest stop. He had this disturbing grin and kept chanting "liar" while slamming the bat into my car. He'd pause to stare at me with that grin, then repeat the word "liar" again. I had no idea what he meant, but I managed to start the car and speed away before it got any worse. I called 911, my hands shaking, and arranged to meet an officer at a gas station. When I looked at the damage, I saw 2 shattered windows, several dents in my doors, and a slashed back tire that was almost flat. Another officer went to check the abandoned rest stop, finding glass on the ground, but the man was gone. Patrol cars were told to look for him in his vehicle, but nothing turned up. I ended up stuck in some unfamiliar town for a few days while my car got repaired. Eventually, I made it home safely. It's insane how unhinged some people can be. I still assume he lost it over me, not giving him a couple of dollars for the vending machine, or maybe just not talking to him in the middle of the night on the side of a highway. The fact that I could have died over something so ridiculous is terrifying. This was back in 2014. I almost never went on road trips at that time because I rarely had the chance to take several days off just to drive, plus the extra time needed to actually enjoy a vacation. But I was between jobs when my family planned a surprise birthday for my dad's 50th. Back then, gas was much cheaper than it is now, and flying cost a lot more compared to gas prices. So, to save money, and because I didn't have work, I decided to make the drive. To be careful, I planned it as a 3-day road trip. After the first full day of driving, I pulled into the nearest motel and booked a room for the night. It wasn't the nicest place, but I didn't mind. I slept in until 11 o'clock, then packed my things and opened the door to leave, only to be startled by a man standing right in the doorway. "Excuse me." I tried to move past him, but he didn't really step aside, which made it awkward. He looked to be in his mid-42nd, with heavy bags under his eyes and an overall unfriendly face. As I carried the rest of my stuff to my car, he stayed there, just standing outside my motel room and staring at me. Good thing I wasn't planning to stay any longer. I checked out and got back on the road. This was my longest day of driving. I wanted to get at least 10 hours in. The first part went fine. Most of it was through towns and cities, and it wasn't until about 5 or 6 hours later that it turned into long, empty stretches of rural road. When I realized towns were becoming rare, I stopped at the next gas station to fill up. I paid, started pumping, then went inside to grab a coffee for the road. Coming back to my car, I noticed a deep red old Corolla had pulled up very close to my car. So close that from the front, it looked like its bumper was touching mine. No one was outside fueling it, and the windshield was so tinted I couldn't see inside. But I knew someone was in there. It felt like they were watching me. I finished fueling and got in my car. The Corolla left right after I did, even though they never bought gas, and pulled behind me to merge onto the highway. I told myself it was just coincidence and kept driving. I noticed them behind me for a while, maybe 5 or 6 cars back. But as the sun went down, I couldn't tell which cars were which, just a cluster of headlights in the distance. Hours later, with fewer cars on the road, I went about 4 hours without seeing that car again. I almost forgot about it, thinking it was nothing. At that point, I was more focused on staying awake now that my coffee was gone. The nearest big city was still 2 hours away, and I wanted to make it there for a nicer hotel, maybe even check out the city the next morning if I could keep my eyes open. I thought about stopping for another coffee, not so much for the caffeine, but to have something to sip on to help me stay alert. At the next gas station, I left the highway, but I could see right away the convenience store was closed. I was disappointed, but I needed to top off my gas anyway, so I started filling up. Almost immediately, I saw a pair of headlights pull off the empty highway and head down the ramp toward the station. The place was already creepy, just a lonely gas station in the dark with nothing around it. The lights outside didn't even show what was beyond them. When I recognized the car coming in as the deep red Corolla from earlier, my heart started pounding. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being followed. I rushed to put the nozzle back, but the car came in fast, skipping the pumps entirely and stopped right next to my driver's door. I got in just before the passenger door of their car opened. A man stepped out and came straight to my door, trying to open it without hesitation. One look at him and I knew it was the same man from the motel. Those eyes gave me chills. I started the engine. When he realized the door was locked, he stopped trying. I glanced at him, expecting anger. Instead, he was grinning from ear to ear, like it was all some kind of sick joke. I floored it back to the highway and didn't stop until I reached the city. Thankfully, I'm almost sure I wasn't followed that time. What scares me most is that the man got out from the passenger seat. That means someone else was driving him, and they were in on whatever twisted plan they had. They followed me for over 10 hours from the motel. Worse, they could have been following me the day before, and I'd never have known. Even now, a decade later, I still can't shake the memory of that road trip.